Hi, this is Margot Guerrero, and I am back for part 1 of Pink Chalk. And in this series, I am going to demonstrate some powdered pigments of the tribes. Most are familiar with Navajo sand painting. Not so well known is the voracious collecting of earth pigments, often placed in leather pouches for carrying in medicine bundles by chiefs during a pilgrimage. All over the U.S. and South America, there were many colored mineral sites that were well known by many indigenous tribes, even to this day. Often when dirt of land colored soil was found, it was precious. The color was an inspiration to manifest of thought and the memory of spirit. Color was sacred. In this part 1 segment of Pink Chalk, I am going to demonstrate the use of these pigments from the 30s and 40s and how to easily use it to become watercolor and into acrylic, which became popular by the 1960s. So I'm just going to use a bed of white glue, which I have from Rublev, which is really nice. It's a good glue for many things, really. It's an archival. I really enjoy using it for almost every application I have. Yeah, glad I didn't drip any on the artwork down below. It happens sometimes. Anyway, so I put that on a little bit on the thick side, just so that it doesn't dry out too quickly. And the little chart here shows 6 colors I've actually prepared for this demonstration. And these colors would have been well known and understood in the period of the 30s and 40s, where the Hopi were well known for using it much like pastel. You put the glue on and then the powder. So I'm just going to demo that part. Use a couple of different colors. And one of the reasons they did this particular method was really because they collected these pigments from all over. Back in the old days, it was well known, even in the 19th century. Something that a lot of people don't know about anymore, because it's just amongst tribal people. So I'm going to let that side be itself. I'll just leave that one little trail. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then this side can be something exciting, the purple. So you can put it on in a variety of ways where it's the least amount of powder coming out. I do use gum arabic that's dry mixed into the powder. It helps it to become just more easily translated in the pigment. Now, I'm not going to do more than that for right now. I'm going to let that dry. But generally what happens is once it's dried, then, because these are non-toxic pigments, you can rub your finger through to smooth out any spots you don't want open to white. And many things that they decorated in even up to current times in the 60s and 70s they would use these in head decorations, crowns, and cachinas, or katsina as they actually call them. So now I'm setting this first one aside. Next, I'm going to remove this. Powders do get all over. So you do have to plan for how you are going to time your work when working with the powders, because of how loose they are, and you can get distracted easily, I'm sure, like most of us do. So now there's watercolor. In watercolor, it's plainly very simple. I'm enjoying this blue. So you have a spray of powder at the top. You can do many things with that to create texture, the sense of design. It'll flow with water, and you can use it as a filler when it comes to maybe just wanting to add a little extra, how should I say, panache maybe, or just that added extra touch or nuance to your work, where maybe the watercolor is full and you weren't able to achieve the type of texture you wanted. So that's what's good about the powder. So you can get it to spread in all of the traditional techniques, or you can get it to stay in a heavier density where you want it to. And this is about being able to just have that sense of completing a watercolor the way you want to. So now this one, I'm just going to leave also pretty much where it's at. The next medium that you can use is acrylic. And I have two. I have Liquitex Basics Acrylic matte gel medium, and that one specifically because there's like low or no gloss. And the same with golden matte medium, translucent low gloss acrylic extender. And these are really marvelous for just getting that one patch of color that maybe you want to create your own seal. Let's see. Here we go. So I'm just going to put this on a small milk plate that I like to use sometimes. And this time you can pick up some color and just mix it right in. So now, like this, I'm going to try the seal process. So this is when you need to mix a color you just really don't have, and there's no other way to accomplish it. And maybe you have some powders in your collection, and this can be a lot of fun. These are based on chalks. chalks that were used in the 40s and 50s by certain tribes because they came from their grade school. And they would take the chalk, this is why I call it pink chalk, they would take pink chalk and grind it up, mortar and pestle, and have pigment ready to go. And they would use it in traditional painting methods or whatever they wanted. They could even add it into an oil painting. So here we have, I didn't mix it in very well just to show process, but I don't always mix it really well intentionally because I'm often still painting on top of it anyway. And sometimes I want that difference of color coming through because I'll come back for texture. Then on top of that, I can create a seal with the pigment. And let that dry before pressing it. Let it dry at least a few hours, maybe 4 to 6, before it goes extremely hard. And then you can impress it with something you like. And that's pretty much it. But I'm going to show you also here in a book that I have. This is what I call my journal of paint and texture palettes. And through the years, I have had the good fortune to do many restorations. And so I would have to replicate the type of surface that had to be restored. And if I didn't have the piece on location with me at home, then I would have to do a watercolor to replicate the colors so that I could give a quote. And then later, once I actually had the piece, then I could create skins of paint, paint chips, or whatever you prefer to call them. And they're actually quite wonderful to do before you do anything to approach any type of restoration. And so this is, you know, for me, this is all it is these are colors that came from objects I worked on, even in watercolor, or acrylic, oil, and the types of surfaces they would be found on. This is a favorite, actually. I just smushed my palette after doing a job, but this is actually on a Ziploc baggie, which can be really handy to use with acrylics of any type, you know, like Holbein's acrylic or any of the other paint companies like Golden or Liquitex. And you can have what's a soft peel of skin that you can pull off. This one I didn't pull off because it's crispier, but I like that. There's certain types of hardnesses that are important to have in a restoration. So important thoughts are always about surface coloration of gloss or no gloss, correct color beneath gloss, and whether or not it was kiln fired or if it was just set to dry naturally, air drying in more contemporary works. This one was for an old vessel I had to restore, an old Buddha vessel, And so these are the actual antique pieces up here, and then I replicated the color. And this is a great example of a seal, which I used something very similar to milliput, which is a type of filler for restoring objects. And then this was the palette. So, you know, keeping palette colors from when you're working are just a nice thing to add to understanding, accomplishing what you want in your own work. This one's a textile woodblock where I use a crayon on top of it. And sometime I'll do another video where I demonstrate how that gets done. You've probably seen them in many of my tins that I send out watercolors in. And that is it for today. Oh, well, before I say goodbye, actually this one was from hand-forged soil that I mixed into its filler for restoring an antique object that was quite large, and that was the actual texture of the vessel. And so that was just really a lot of fun because I was able to find the correct color of soil. So there's fun things to do with hand-forged and commercial, and that's it. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening to me and sharing your interesting thoughts. And thank you so much for being here.